a new everything and try to just give it, just create a new folder. That's all. I think everybody knows how to create a folder now. Yeah, that I'm talking about people that probably were not in the last one. I think so. Mr. Shegun was not here, Miss Uche wasn't here. So you can create a new file. You can, if you created in your last class, you can still use the same folder and same file, still fine. Now, after that, what I want you to do next is create your index.html file and also create your app.js file. Now, after doing these two things, we can now move on. Now, just the way you've been saving HTML is still the same format in which you save JavaScript. So it's also what .js. So you have index.html. If you are going to create a JavaScript file, it has to be what the JavaScript name .js. Now we are currently in index.html. So I'm just going to go over our normal shortcut syntax, right? And then we are going to get started with writing JavaScript. Now, the first thing that we have to do is that we need to link our HTML to our JavaScript. Now, the first thing what you need to understand about linking is that your browser understands HTML perfectly. In fact, basically what your browser does is understanding HTML. Now, every other thing is now linked to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Why? Because your browser understands HTML. The CSS and JavaScript is now linked to it is now what is functioning underneath in the browser. Now, but for now, we have to link CSS and JavaScript to our HTML. So we're going to use our script tag with the src file attribute rather. I'm going to say app.js. Now, why am I linking it to? Why am I linking it to the body? I said it in our last slide. Who wants to help us? Someone asked this question and I answered. What's the answer? Yeah, no. Who's going to answer? So I come again with the fine. Okay. Yes. Okay, good. That's a very I didn't was that something you said? Okay, I didn't actually hear what you said. I didn't hear what you said. Okay, so now that what you just explained is the reason, but just to add further explanation, the reason why you put your script tag in this place and not in the header as your normal CSS is because whenever your page is loading, it loads from top to bottom. Now, JavaScript is a very heavy language because you'll be writing heavy syntax. So now, if your JavaScript loads first, what happens is that your page might get slower, might get very slow. Your page might actually load very, very slow. And why is it loading slow? Because it's trying to load all the syntax, all the heavy things that you've probably written, and it's trying to load them up. Now, loading them up will definitely take time. So it is best to put them in the body and making sure that it is the last thing on your body. Not that you put it on your body, you now come here and now start writing H1 under it. No, it has to be the last thing on your body. So every single syntax or HTML that you want to write has to go above this particular script tag. Why? Because you want everything to load before this thing start loading. Now, those things takes probably 3 seconds or 5 seconds to load, depending on how fast your web pack is, how fast your optimization, you writing your code is. But there are some times that if you put this thing up, your page will now start taking 15 seconds to load. And once your page load time passes 5 seconds, what happens is that your user starts getting, a lot of people have short attention span. So they start getting, tired of the loading and so they leave your web page. So you do not want that. It's not good for user experience. So what you have to do is put it at the last part and then it loads up by itself. So now we've gotten the script tag here. The next thing is to go back to your JavaScript now and start writing codes. Now, in our last class, we talked about quite a few things. We talked about variables, right? We talked about data types. And we also talked about a little bit of history of JavaScript. So we don't have time to go over that now. So you can try to watch the videos, so that I like talking about history of some of this language, so that you can understand why it was formed and why it uses the use case on our use cases. So, but for now, we would just have to like skip that because of our time. I don't know why this thing is disconnecting. Okay, now we talked about variables and data types. These are the two things I was talking about in our last class. So, what are variables? Let me start from there. I know it's a recap, but some of us were here and some of us wrote codes. So let's start. Start David. You've not said anything today. Yeah.
These are like containers that's
Okay. Nice. They are containers. That's perfect. So what are I think I need everybody to like tell me more. We did a lot of things on variables in our last class. What okay, you already told us what variables are. How do you write variables? What exactly do they do? Yes, we know what variables are, but what do they do? What are their uses? You understand? And apart from that, their syntax. We need that also. So who can tell us their syntax? Who can explain some of these things to us? I know I'm looking at you. It's favor. Just help us out.
So you can have a variable name of value. Value is not the data type. It's number or string.
Okay. All right, nice. Now, we explained in our last class that variables are containers. So when I say containers, they're like a basket. So for instance, what's the name of this? Olivia. This Olivia table water. Now, what happens is that in this Olivia table water, you have water inside. But there is a container storing this water. Now, this container storing the water is like a variable. It's a container for storing certain data. You know, it's a particular data. You understand? Or a data type. That's what it is. Now, take this water as a data, the water inside as a data. What kind of data is this container storing? Water. You understand it now? That's what variables are. So variables are saying, okay, this container right here is the variable. This name of Olivia is now what? The variable name. Saying that, okay, any particular, wherever you see Olivia table water, you know that, okay, the manufacturer is what? Olivia. And all they do is table water. They sell table water. Now, that's basically what variables are. And now the container, the content inside is not the data. Now, that's basically what you need to understand about variables, right? So variables are saying that, okay, first of all, you need to have a variable, right? A variable name, sorry, a variable keyword, right? Now, after that, you will now have a variable name. Then you will now have the data slash value or content. You understand it now? So basically what you're saying is that you declare your variable, which is your variable keyword, then you give that particular variable a name to identify it. Then you now give it a data or value. Now, what am I saying? For instance, let's say you have Olivia Waters. You can have var, which is your variable keyword or your variable. Then you now have like a variable name. So can I say Olivia, which is your what? Variable name, then equals to what? The value. What's the value? We can now have what's the value? Water. So water. You understand it now? So now this is how variables are stored. So right now, anytime I try to reference Olivia, what's going to come out? Water. Because you already stored the value of water to Olivia. So if I now say console.log Olivia, right? Now, if I go back to my HTML now, okay, I think it is on, but let me go live again. So now, if I go ahead to this place, let's go my console now. Now, I can see that what is coming out is what? Water. Because after referencing Olivia, it gave me water. So that is basically what variables are. So variables are like just containers, so that whenever I want to try to like access a particular data another time, all I've done is that I have to first of all save it to the top. Then I can now access it multiple times in my code. Now that's basically what variables are saying. Now, three things should be considered when writing variables. The first is your what? Your variable keyword, which is your var, right? Second is your variable name, which is Olivia. Third is your what? Your value or data. Now, similarly, I can say the same thing. I can say var first name equals to what? Let's say Paul, right? Then I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to call this Levites, but this is not going to be last name rather than first name. Now, let me try to do the same that I did here. So I'm going to say console.log first name. Then I'm going to like duplicate it and change this to last name. Now, what am I saying here? If you check, no. Now, if you check this out, now if I go ahead to Paul Levites, as you can see, that is basically what variables are. Now, you need to note this. Again, the first is what? A variable keyword. Second is the variable name. Then the third is what? The value. Now, you might not know how to write this now, but I need to know if you understand the syntax, you understand what variables do, and then is it clear to you? Is it clear to you? Can we move on now? Now, there are three things, like I said, that I need you to focus on. The first is what? Keyword. Second is what? Variable name. The third is the data or value. Now, in JavaScript, we have three major keywords in variable keywords in JavaScript. The first is what? Your var, which we've been using. The second is your let, and the third is your const. Now, these three things are very much important. You need to know why and why not to use some of them, or when and when not to use some of them. Now, you have your var, you have your let, and then you have your const. Now, this thing has disconnected. I think it's the network. Let me connect from my own network. So, let me just connect to my network. Let me see if this is going to work for that. It has not really been working for me. I don't think. Let me pause the recording first, because it's not coming on. Try to turn it up before it's going on. Maybe switch is dead. It's not going on. Then it's probably it's in it. All right, let's move on. So as I was saying, right, I said we have um var first name Paul, var last name Levites, right? And then okay, I was already explaining this. Now, as I said, you have to put into consideration that we have three keywords. Yeah, I am. You have to put into consideration three of these keywords. The first is var, second is let, and then the third is const. Now, these three things are very much important that you need to put into, like, you need to actually use them. You need to know when to use them, when not to use them, and how to also use them. Now, you have var, you have let, and then you have const. Now, what are the differences between var, let, and const? We'll talk about them very soon. But first of all, let me explain how you use them. So the same way you use var here is just the same way you use let and const. So I can come here and say let full name equals to what? Let's say Paul and divide. You understand? So if you check it out now, and then you okay, let me do console.log full name log, then I'll say full name, right? So if you check this place out now, you should be able to see Paul Levites. Why? Because I still use let, and then it's still working pretty much the same way as this. Now, similarly, you can have your const. So I can say const, right? I can now say const profession equals to, and then I can have still doing the same thing again. I don't understand. It's in my system. Sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's on the call.
Can you check your
Okay, you can't see my. Okay, I'm not on the call. Can you see my screen? Okay, so now let's say that you want to like talk about my own profession. Like, I can ask you profession, and then let's say farmer. I use farmer yesterday. I don't know why. So farmer, then we can say console.log, then profession again. So if you check it out now, you should see farmer and profession. Now that's basically one thing about const. Now, as you can see, they all have similar syntax, but they have different use cases. And what I mean by use cases, they have a place where you use them and where not to use them. So for instance, your var, as I said on Monday, you don't use it again. var is like an olden days way of using your variables or declaring your variables. And why? I gave an example in our last class that first of all, it was first of all called live script, right? It was called live. Okay, so it was called live scripts at first, right? Then later they thought about something. They said, "Oh, live live script is not going to be, it's not going to be popular, right? Why not just use something that is already popular, combine it with this particular name, and then push it out?" So they wanted people to start using JavaScript very, very fast. So they thought about it. Okay, which language right now is popular that we can actually rename this live script on? You understand? So they thought about it. Java right now, at that time, Java and JavaScript, just to put it out there, Java and